It's hard to think that children could hate the very people through whom they were born into this world. But it's true, they do. However, not every child hates their parents because they're ungrateful. Some hate them because they were hurt and were never allowed to say it. This video isn't about blame. It's about understanding. Today, we're talking about the psychology of people who hate their parents and why sometimes that hate isn't really hate at all. It's grief. It often starts quietly. A teenager who stops coming home early. An adult who no longer picks up their mother's calls. A son who smiles on the outside but tenses when his father walks in. Sometimes the parents say, "He's ungrateful," or "She's changed." But deep down, it isn't about rebellion. It's about pain that was never heard. Psychology tells us that resentment toward parents rarely begins as anger. It begins as disappointment that turns into silence. And over time, silence becomes distance. This is typically how it starts, and please tell me if I am wrong. It's the little things that shape the wound. A father who mocks his child for crying. A mother who uses guilt to control her children's choices. A parent who gives love only when the child performs. The child is only praised for good grades, good behavior, and good silence. At first, the child tries harder. They study more, help more, smile more, but nothing changes. And slowly, something inside them turns cold. They just see their parents as impossible to please, and they stop trying. Psychologists call this emotional withdrawal. It's the mind's way of saying, if loving them always hurts, maybe I shouldn't try at all. And that hate starts, but maybe hate isn't the right word. Many people think hate is the opposite of love. It isn't. Hate is often love that's been burned too many times. It's love saying, I can't keep hurting like this. When children feel trapped between wanting affection and fearing rejection, the brain does something clever but cruel. It numbs the love. This is a defense mechanism called detachment. It's like building a wall inside your chest. You still care, but you stop showing it. You stop expecting comfort. You stop calling home. And sometimes, that distance looks like hate. Many people have shared stories of how they came to hate their parents. A daughter grows up with a mother who criticizes everything. Her hair, her body, and her choices. When she was a child, she tried to please her. But now that she is an adult, she avoids her mother completely. She says, I can't stand my mom. But what she means is, I'm tired of never feeling good enough. A son grows up with a father who's always angry. He learns to read footsteps, tone, and silence. He grows up afraid of making mistakes because nothing he does pleases his dad. Later in adulthood, when he visits home, his stomach knots before he even rings the doorbell. He says, I hate him. But what he really means is, I'm scared, and I don't know how to feel safe with him. Another child watches her parents fight constantly. She becomes the peacemaker. She learns to take care of everyone else, even when she's breaking inside. As an adult, she resents them for stealing her childhood. She loves them, but she's angry at the role she never asked for. A daughter grows up in a house where love and fear sound the same. Her mother's voice, sharp as glass, fills every room. Her father abuses her secretly. When she drops a plate, the punishment is usually humiliation. She learns to brace for the slap before it comes, to study her mother's mood like weather, and to avoid her father like the plague. Her mother never protected her. By the time she's grown, she doesn't flinch out of fear anymore. She flinches out of memory. When people ask about her family, She forces a smile and says, "We're not close." But what she really means is, being near her feels like being in a prison cell. All of these adults were children who innocently tried hard to love parents who didn't love them back. Now they want nothing to do with them. That anger, psychologists call it parental resentment. It's not evil. It's just an outlet for a child's pain. But sometimes it's not about bad parenting. Not every painful parent is abusive or unjustly harsh. Some are just emotionally unavailable, always working, and always tired. Some love deeply, but don't know how to show it. And some carry their own unresolved trauma, passing it down without realizing. But despite that, the child grows up thinking, if this is love, maybe love isn't safe. And that belief shapes everything. They struggle with trust. They crave approval, but push people away. They feel guilty for being angry. It's a confusing place to live, loving the person who hurt you and hating yourself for feeling that way. Psychologists call it ambivalent attachment. It's what happens when love and fear live in the same house. On the other extreme, we have homes where affection is earned. A good grade, a clean room, a polite smile. Those will get you loved. Anything else is frowned upon. When love feels conditional, the child learns that their value depends on performance. They start believing, if I do everything right, maybe I'll finally be loved right. But that day rarely comes. So, as adults, they stop trying. They say, I owe them nothing. And that guilt eats them alive. Because no matter how far they go, a part of them still aches for the love they never got. And that's the paradox. They hate their parents, but deep down, they're still waiting for an apology that might never come. Psychologists explain this through the lens of attachment and identity. In childhood, parents are our mirrors. They show us who we are. When those mirrors reflect criticism, control, or indifference, the child's sense of self warps. By adulthood, that distortion becomes self-doubt. They ask, am I the problem? And when they finally realize they aren't, the anger comes loud, overdue, and explosive. But underneath that anger is sadness. A deep grief for the childhood they deserved but never got. And you see that pain everywhere if you look closely. A woman who dreads Mother's Day because it reminds her of everything she never had. A man who buys gifts for his dad out of duty, not love. A daughter who blocks her parents' number, then cries afterward. An adult who avoids family gatherings, yet still checks their parents' Facebook page in secret. That's the ache of unresolved love. It's the part of us that still hopes, even when we say we've stopped caring. And this is why some people vow never to be like their parents. They say they will never act like their parents towards their own children. But when stress hits, they hear the same words coming out of their own mouths. They see themselves reacting just the way their parents did. The same tone, the same reactions. Because the brain copies what it knows, even if it hated what it saw. A daughter who hated her mother's criticism now criticizes herself every day. A son who hated his father's silence now shuts down during arguments. That's how cycles survive. Through repetition, not choice. And breaking them takes awareness. It takes looking at the mirror and saying, this ends with me. So how does one heal from this? Is it possible for these people to stop hating their parents despite all they went through? Yes, healing is possible. Healing doesn't mean pretending your parents were perfect. Far from it. It means facing the truth without letting it define you. It starts with small steps. Naming what happened. Allowing yourself to feel anger without shame. Understanding that forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's praying for the grace to forgive and let go. It's freeing yourself from carrying their mistakes. Psychologists call this reparenting, giving yourself what your parents couldn't. That means learning to comfort yourself when you're scared, praising yourself when you succeed, letting yourself rest without guilt. Because once you start giving yourself love, the hate begins to lose its power. Not overnight, but slowly and gently. If you're someone who hates your parents, you're not evil. You're human. You were hurt in ways your body remembers, even when your mind tries to move on. Hate was never your goal. It was your defense. It protected you when love wasn't safe. It gave you space to breathe. But you don't have to live behind it forever. Healing is possible, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by learning to feel without fear again. To love without losing yourself. To remember that your story doesn't have to end in bitterness. And as you heal, you will begin to notice the changes in smaller moments. When you don't flinch at your parents' voice anymore. When you set a boundary and don't feel guilty. When you realize their behavior says more about their pain than your worth. That's what healing looks like. Not perfect peace, but quiet freedom. So, if you've ever said, "I hate my parents," maybe look deeper. Maybe it isn't hate at all. Maybe it's sorrow that never found words. Maybe it's love, bruised and confused, still searching for safety. You don't have to rush forgiveness. You don't have to love like nothing happened. But you can stop carrying what broke you. Because you deserve peace. Not the forced kind that hides pain, but the gentle kind that comes from truth. And if you're watching this, maybe that's the start. Maybe today, you simply say, "I was hurt. I'm still healing. But I'm learning not to hate myself for it." That's how the cycle breaks. Not when everything is perfect, but when you decide to stop passing down the pain. Share your story if you will. This is a safe space, and it's a healing space too.